In this lecture, we will learn a few more examples about modeling. Again, using all the steps of modeling that were listed earlier to see if we could still identify basic element. Again, we go with the conservation law or any of those physical laws that govern the system. Okay, so the first example that we deal with is very simple model of cruise control of a car. Okay, a cruise control refers to a control of velocity of a car on a road, where input comes in the form of some kind of acceleration force. The measured output is usually the car velocity, and then we usually measure the position of car, how much distance it has traveled typically from the reference point. So how do we capture all these dynamics? There is a certain force which generates a displacement and in turn a velocity. Okay, so if we go back to the steps of modeling, the first step would say, well, what is the purpose of a model? Well, the purpose of model is to understand the velocity behavior and therefore the control of velocity. Then how do we define the boundaries? Well, we all look at the car as a system to be controlled, and then it travels on a highway or a road that form a part of environment. So what could be a typical structure here? So there is again a force, displacement and a velocity. So if we could say that system, the thermal energy which comes from the engine structure is converted into kinetic energy, okay, or the velocity. Some part of energy is lost due to friction between road and car. So the car would have a certain mass m, and since we already said that there are some kind of energy losses, there would be some kind of damping element introduced in the model. And before we write down relevant energy conservation or force conservation losses, and also to be a little simple to begin with, we neglect the rotational inertia of the wheels. So once I do this, I would like to select some basic variables of interest. So the variable of interest are displacement x, which again gets the velocity v by all the forces F. So we have this car model as m, mass m, and friction between the car and the surface on which it is moving on the road. Moving the road is model as damper with the b variable. Okay, so there are two elements here. One is inertia element, which is modeled as F equals to m double differentiation of displacement, as we did in previous lecture, and the frictional force would be related to velocity via damping coefficient b. So there are physical laws. Are there any physical laws? Shall once we identify the structure, and the structure here I can directly write that the sum of all the forces is 0, which means something like this. This is my external force, this is my frictional force, this is my acceleration force. So what is frictional force? Well, frictional force is this b into velocity, and then acceleration force is m into acceleration. So substitute that in, that is the velocity and this is acceleration. So I can write my equation as F minus b into velocity is equal to m into acceleration. Okay, or the final mathematical model will look like this: velocity plus b by m v equals to F by m. Here we were having displacement, then we converted into velocity, and then final mathematical model. A very simple model which capture the cruise control in a car, and this is very simplified model but still gives some basic understanding of dynamics of system. So the next example, again we come back to electrical domain, is that of transformer. So what is again transformer? So just to recollect, it is an electrical device which transfer electrical energy from one circuit to another, and it works based on the laws of electromagnetic induction introduced by Faraday. So how does it look like? Well, it has some core, something called as primary and secondary winding, and energy transfer happen by including a voltage in secondary winding via the core, inducing a voltage in secondary winding via the core. And where does the core get that energy? Core gets its energy through some electrical sources in primary winding. So if I just quickly write a very small diagram of this, could say that this is my core, this is my primary winding, this is my secondary winding, I have a voltage source, Vi, I have a load voltage V naught, which will get generated V naught. Then I will have a magnetic core, there is some flux. Okay, with all those electromagnetic induction law, there would be a voltage induced in secondary winding. Okay, and then you will have certain N1 and N2. So this is that V1 by V2 is equals to N1 by N2 is equals to I2 by I1. And what is the relationship between power here and output power? So relation is input power is equals to output power, or we can say Vi into V1 into I1 is equals to V2 into I2. Okay, so this is something which we do in our course. All the textbook will have some problem like this. Consider a problem where I was given a rating of transformer goes from 200 to 400, step up transformer, frequency is given as 50 Hz, single phase transformer, some power factor, calculate the efficiency of transformer operating with different loads like 80%, 100%, 80%, 50%, 25% of load. So how does I solve this problem? Do I take transformer and let get a voltage supply, let get a load which is 100%, and then do the experiment each time for 100%, 80%, 50%, 25%, and get the answer? Or there is any other easier way? The risk when I do this experiment is that, well, I may not be very careful, or I could burn down the transformer and so on. Okay, so we will propose a model for analyzing loss, and in turn we could compute what is efficiency. So first step, we identify what is the purpose. Okay, then second step is to define the boundary, which is transformer possibly connected to the load, and then the structure. Okay, well, the structure of transformer, we will have a primary winding, we will have a secondary winding. Okay, we will have a voltage, we will have a currents. Since I have a winding, it could have its own resistance, its own inductance. The core could have something with its own property which might lose some energy and so on. And just for a moment, we will assume that we will neglect the saturation core losses. Okay, we will neglect the saturation of core, and if I take into consideration all these other things, or what in textbook would call as a core loss or a copper loss. Okay, so then I give a structure to that. So I have a primary winding, I have a secondary winding, then I call this, well, each of these guys would have some resistance. Let me call them R1 and R2. there would be some flux leakage in both the winding of the primary. We call them as L1 and L2. There are certain losses which happen in addition to that of losses in the winding, which called as core loss. So they are there. I will quantify them as R naught resistance, which quantify heat loss in core, similarly inductance of core. Okay, so once I have this beautiful looking circuit. I have voltage source, resistances, inductances, resistance R naught, L naught, and so on. Okay, so this is the physical model of transformer. Now given a transformer, who tells me what is R1, L1, what is R naught, L naught, L2, and so on. The load I could know because I am just connecting this externally to the transformer. So this is known to me, other things are unknown. Okay, so once I have this equivalent model, I would know I would know that I could calculate efficiency of transformer for given loadings. And who gives me the value of R, several resistances and inductance? Well, we all know that we could do something called as open circuit test or short circuit test. So once I do open circuit test, okay, I will supply low rated voltage on low voltage side, and high voltage side is kept open. So the most of the current consumed would just be across R naught and X naught, and based on the measurement of power and current, you could estimate R naught and X naught. Okay, just by relationship between voltage, current, and power, that we call in our lab experiment as no load test. Similarly, to identify the resistance and inductance of the winding, you could do short circuit test, where low voltage side is shorted and you keep on increasing voltage from 0 to a value where rated current will flow on high voltage winding. So that is usually typically given in your problem statement, or even if you look at your physical transformer, you will have it as a rated current, so you know supplier would give you some. So once you have the rated current going through your high voltage side, then you neglect your so once the rated current going through your high voltage, I1 and I2 become a little negligible, and all the parameter which you measure and all the losses would mainly be accounted in I square R losses in primary winding and secondary winding. And doing just these two experiments, you would give me all these values like R1, L1, R2, L2, R0 and L0. And okay, so this is the process. Okay, so in open circuit test, the power and current drawn are almost equal to the core losses and no load current. Shunt parameters of equivalent circuit are approximated using this core loss and no load current. Okay, as I told here. In short circuit test, power drawn is almost equal to copper loss, and series elements of equivalent circuits are approximated by this copper loss and short circuit current on low voltage side. And using the circuit parametric calculation of efficiency and regulation become possible mathematically. So This is the process. Do the open circuit test, do the short circuit test, identify the parameters. So once you identify all these parameters, the calculation just become a basic problem in a circuit. So you can just look at the circuit and all these problem translated to us. So this is maybe possibly with certain power factor. So I'm just solving using pen and paper all these problems. So what have I done? I have looked at the big transformer which is situated in substation. I want to do experiment on that which give me answer on how this transformer would behave to different change in the load, no load, full load, or with different power factor, resistive load, inductive load. All these experiment I have translated to a simple experiment which I could just use a pen and paper and possibly a calculator. And this is the beauty of model. I can answer all the question without having to touch the transformer. So the next example is something which we were familiar to, which is very familiar to us, something which we learn in high school, the simple pendulum. Okay, well, its construction, it has mass m, a little string L, hinged to a pivot point P, and we all know that if I start from a position given theta from here, I just let it go and it will just keep on oscillating back and forth around its equilibrium point. Now how do we explain these dynamic? Are these, or explain what pendulum does as a mathematical model? Okay, so we drive a mathematical model to study the motion of pendulum. So let's go back to high school physics for a while. The purpose of model again is I want to study the motion of simple pendulum. How would it behave if I release it from theta for 5 degree, or from theta to 10 degree or 90, so on, and identify the relevant boundary of the system. And then what is the structure of system? Is the system, I know that there is some kind of energy transformation happening in the system. So if I see here, it's go all the way here till theta minus theta, okay, and it will come back, and at this point here it stop and goes back. That is the point where we have completely changed from kinetic energy to potential energy. Okay, so this is the point where we just change from kinetic energy to potential energy. So kinetic energy goes to 0 here, and the energy all the energy is potential energy. So this is the point where all the energy is converted into kinetic energy. Okay, and back and forth. So here I am having minus theta, here at this point it is theta, so it is back and forth. So the system just oscillate between point of maximum potential to maximum kinetics, then maximum potential, then maximum kinetic, then maximum potential, and so on. So we will see how it look mathematically. So as a structure, it is similar to rotational mechanical system, right? So you have rotational motion, possibly a torque or external torque, or system own torque because of inertia, and so on. Okay, so neglect friction. I just draw something like free body diagram, which I am used in my 12th standard physics. I have rotational torque. There is some that could possibly some frictional torque, a motion of moment of inertia J, and some angular velocity omega. So the variable of interest here are, as I could, as in car, I was interested in how the position and velocity evolves. Here I would be interested in how the theta, the angular displacement, and angular velocity omega evolve with time based on these parameters of the system m, l, g, which is acceleration due to gravity. Okay. Again, just if you recollect those basic building block in mechanical system, I had inertia element model as torque is related to angle acceleration via J. Okay, and again, if I just recollect some of my high school physics, I would know that moment of inertia is equals to m l square. So now I also, in addition, have this gravity right in my system, this gravity over here. Okay, so the torque due to gravity would be in this direction, and we will easily compute to be mg sine theta multiplied by L. Okay, so this is my gravitational force mg, and the force is in this direction would be mg sine theta, and the torque would be given by this form, and both these torques are acting in opposite direction. So at the moment I do not consider frictional over here, so it is just lossless system. So ml square, the torque, this guy, is here it will be double dot, is equals to or is compensated by minus mg sine theta, and therefore I have the dynamics written as all this theta plus gl sine theta 0. So this is just a lossless pendulum. Once you leave it from the position theta, it will keep on oscillating forever. So as a simple exercise, you can try and find out equivalent of these kind of behavior in electrical circuit, where I just start from initial condition and my systems are such, or the system component are such that the total energy of the cores are conserved, and it's all show an oscillatory behavior. Think about it, try to do it maybe in next class to see if there is equivalent of simple pendulum behavior in electrical circuit. Next we move on to modeling friction. In addition, now I have a frictional torque Tf. Again, if you recollect the previous lecture, it is modeled as relationship between torque and resistive element B. Okay, so if I have one more equation, or I will have one more term in my equation, that is Tf. So now Tr is equals to negative of Tg minus Tf. Okay, and if I will substitute this Tr, Tg, Tf from here, so I will get a final mathematical model, something as double differentiation of theta plus b by ml, theta single differentiation, and g by l sine theta is equals to 0. So this is my kinetic term, this is my potential energy term, and this is some frictional element. So if you really wanted to relate to mass, spring and damper kind of system, think of another example of electrical example, of which exhibit behavior like this, like a lossless behavior combined with the dissipative element. Think of it. Okay. So something which we will do now is something outside what we have learned so far in textbooks. So I will just briefly explain to you what we are trying to do here. So let us start with some scenario here. Say I have a little pond here with lot of water, with little weed here, little vegetation, okay, inside, and I have some small small fish. This small fish will fit to this little vegetation inside the pond. So this is good looking scenario where these guys bunch up those small fishes, okay, some hiding behind here and so on. So this is small fish fed on all the vegetation and they live happily, they multiply, they grow in population and so on. So how can I model this population? So let me call this small fish as some S, okay, and I want to see how these guys will evolve with time. And if there are bunch of them with some initial condition and non-zero initial condition, they have plenty of food to eat, you will imagine that they will keep on growing forever. So this would be modeled as some constant, say K1 S. They will keep on growing forever. So this is very simple model which capture growing on forever phenomena. So let us see another pond here, okay, where there are bigger fish. But these fish such that they do not fed on vegetation but they fed on smaller fishes. And if there is no small fish here for them to fed on, it is natural that all of them will die out. So there is no food, the fish go on dying. So I will model this as d capital S dt is equals to K2 S with minus sign. This is capital S, okay. So the first equation tell me how small fish will grow when they, of course I assume that they do not naturally die, they will have lots of food to eat. So if I write down this, just be like an exponential growth. So st is equals to s naught e to the power k1 t, and this is solution of this equation. And if I just draw a graph between s and t, it might just grow like very fast, okay. So these guys, what happened, they do not have food, bigger fishes, they do not have food to eat, so they will die out eventually and start with initial condition. Suppose they start with initial condition, they have nothing to feed, the solution will not look very good. So solution to this is s naught e to the power k to t minus. So with time they go on smaller and asymptotically it goes to 0. So now interesting thing happen when I take some of these small fish and put them here. So there is small fish, nice tiny little one, so there is small fish here. I say one of them could be Nemo with one of its fin lost. So what will happen now? So these big fish have some small fish to eat. So what we would expect to happen in second equation, that I will just write second equation here. ds by dt is equals to, these guys had nothing to eat, so they will die. Now they have something to eat, so naturally we would expect that their population will grow. So I will write this was earlier. I will write big fish would says come in contact with small fish at some rate k3. Okay, so you will see how population increase, that because they have food to eat, they can multiply and so on. So what will happen to this guy? So will this guy still grow exponentially? What will happen to ds by dt? Here we assume that they never die, so they have a lot of food to eat and therefore they keep on multiplying. Now this ds by dt, which was earlier k1s, will now see some decrease, and the decrease is based on how many big fish come in contact. How many big fish come in contact with small fish? So it is minus with a constant of k4. So this is the equation together with this equation, these two equations together with this equation. This is small s, the big S. I hope you will able to distinguish between those. Let me just, this is ds. So these two equations will together in some way explain to me the behavior of small fish, big fish. Their population will change with time based on maybe certain initial condition, availability of food and so on. So we are just write down these vaguely in terms of some mathematical equation. Okay, so I will just clear it once. This is understood. Now I am erasing it. So these models are typically referred to as predator prey model. So what is this? To model the dynamics of simple biological system in which there are two species of animal. So one species is prey, serve as food source for the other predator. So the big fish are predators and small fish are prey. And this prey, they fed on vegetation. So how do we go about describing a model for this? So earlier these are based on certain assumption and observation. Following assumption when we derive this model. The prey birth rate is proportional to the size of population, its own population, and the way prey die is the only when they come in contact with predator, and therefore their death rate would be proportional to in some way to the size of predator population. The third assumption we make is that the predator birth rate is proportional again to the size of other predator and the prey population, because when they are in contact with each other they have food to eat and then they could multiply, and the predator death rate is proportional again to its own size. The further assumption is that the predator, the big fish, have nothing else to eat except the small fish, or in another word, it means that the predator species is totally dependent only on a single source, the small fish, for food supply. And the prey species are such that they have unlimited food supply and nobody else eat them except the big fish, and there is no threat to the prey apart from this specific predator, which is a big fish. Okay, so let us say I want to define that these are my system variable, like in a way xt is the population of prey species at some time t, and yt is population of predator at time t. So based on how we drive the model previously, xt would be some constant alpha greater than 0, which is the first term, will denote how predator population increases, and prey population will increases. Okay, and they are their own, and they have a lot of food to eat. And the second term, minus beta xy, capture how their population decrease when they come in contact with big fish or predator. The second expression, dy by dt equals to minus gamma y, which means first term means that they will die in absence of food, and the second term capture the increase in their population when they come in contact with prey or small fish. Then how their population increase, and all these parameters, alpha, beta, gamma and delta, depends on how fast they die, or how frequently predator and the prey they come in contact with each other. All these are like greater than 0. So these equations are usually referred to in literature as Lotka-Volterra equation. So again, we just rewrite what we said earlier. In the absence of predator, what will happen to prey? Okay, and in absence of prey, what will happen to predator? So if I were to just look at graph for what happened, right? So let's say if I want to just write down these things, if I say if initial condition, say x is equals to 0, y is equals to 0, well, this means nothing. What if x is equals to 15 and y is equals to 25? Who will increase first, who will decrease first? Okay, so let us say x is equals to 100 and y is equals to 10,000. So what will happen initially is that there are a lot of big fish to eat small fish, so you will see a drastic reduction in size of x. So now these guys will have less food to eat, then y will go down for a while, and if y goes down, these guys will increase, and then they keep on increasing and decreasing forever, unless there is a point where if there is some number x star and y star, they start from these numbers and remain that forever, which means if x star is constant for all time and y star is constant for all time, which means dx by dt will go to 0 and also dy by dt will goes to 0. So let us see if this is possible or not. So I have two equation, dx by dt is equals to alpha x minus beta xy. Now this is equals to 0. Similarly, dy by dt is equals to gamma y plus delta xy. Okay, so the first equation would means x alpha minus beta y is equals to 0, and the second equation means y is equals to y minus gamma, this is minus sign here, plus delta x is equals to 0. So we are not interested in the solution x equals to 0 or y, therefore the solution would be y is equals to alpha by beta, and x, let me call x is equals to minus gamma by delta, because I'm just looking at the solution. When dx by dt goes to 0 and dy by dt goes to 0, this x star would be, if I rearrange, is gamma by delta, plus sign is there. Okay, and y star would be alpha by beta. So if the initial conditions are such that these two things holds, then my population will just be the same throughout. That's what this model tell. So what happened for any other values? So this point here, center is x star, y star here. For every other thing, I just see that population x increases, then x increases, y will increase, but will y increases, x will see more decrease. Okay, so it first x is increasing, okay, then x is increasing, y is increasing, then y is increasing, but x is decreasing, okay, and so on. So let us be some oscillatory kind of behavior depending on where you start. Okay, if you are here, then we'll just follow this curve here. If you start close here, it might have this curves would look like here. Okay, so because I can't go here, because x and y can never be equals to 0, I don't even would not start over here. Okay, so these are fairly good condition where I start at some point and then I just keep on revisiting same point over and over again. So this is just simulation for some certain value of alpha, beta, gamma and delta. So this is what we call as a fixed point or equilibrium point when dx by dt goes to 0 and dy by dt goes to 0. And this is like equilibrium points, and we will define this eventually more formally. Equilibrium points, they are also called as fixed point. Okay, so I will just clear it once. So if I will just draw a graph for this alpha equals to 2 by 3, beta equals to 4 by 3, gamma is equals to 1, delta equals to 1. The plot for prey population versus predator population is as follow. Okay, and each curve, an initial condition is x equals to y equals to 0.8 initially, and over here it is x equals to y equals to 1.8 with a step variation of 0.1, and this center point is fixed point at 1, 1 by 2. So this is my equilibrium point, or you can say fixed point. Okay, so this is how you can have a graph. You can change alpha, beta, gamma value, and by MATLAB coding you can draw this. Okay, so is there any drawback of a model? So when we look at the steps of model, we say no, step 5, step 6, say no, mathematical model, and then there is another step which say validate your model. If I say validate my model, will I know if I just go to a pond, I just own a pond for a while, there is a vegetation, I buy small fish, a big fish, and I say, well, I do this experiment, will this hold true? Well, they may not, because the assumption we made were really strong. Now let us see if we need to make some more assumption or relax some assumption, or maybe there would be some strong assumption to arrive at more realistic model. So the drawback of previous model was that the prey population would grow unbounded in the absence of predator, which means they would never die by themselves, which is contradictory to nature. So if you know, there will be people, there will be small fish who will die naturally, and therefore to make it realistic we replace exponential growth term. Now we also add some term which will take care of death rate. Okay, so some constant is multiplied by x square. Therefore, if you look at this equation, if there is no big fish, y goes to 0, and in absence of y, prey population will it not stabilize at some value. It will not be that really a large number of fish that is not enough to eat, but will. So the assumptions are little unrealistic. Okay, so this is assumption which will be closer to a realistic, or which is sustainable in the environment. Similarly, if say predator, we assume earlier that it will, or of course, die naturally, but if what we also assume that if there are small fish, they will just die because they have nothing to eat. This is also very strong assumption. But if I say that predator has some other alternative source of food, then the predator population, then they will not go to 0 due to starvation. So mess is not the only source of food for hostile guys. So they could go out and they could live, much longer. So that I would account and say dy by dt, this take into consideration my increase in population because of small fish. I modify this little bit to take care the account of natural death by minus b y square. So this is increase in population when I come in contact with some other restaurant food, not the mess food. So this is the manner we could model complex food chain. You can just look at some more assumptions. Something would be based on observation. We would also model what if there are multiple species interacting with each other. This is how the entire ecosystem of nature is built, right? That one species is dependent on other species for survival. The tiger are dependent on deers are dependent on trees, and so on. Okay, so all these nice kind of natural balance equation can be captured just by observation and then writing down in terms of some of the simple differential equation. So what we have learned so far is a very general notation of system. What could be we do with system in terms of control, open loop control, we had closed loop control, we had classification system in two types of physical system, which we felt extensively were electrical and mechanical system. And we also see well of how to build model of approximately all this real world phenomena in terms of some basic element from electrical and mechanical system. Even if I do not have this basic electrical and mechanical system, I could still model system in terms of some kind of differential equation just by observation and looking at some fact which I know that all living beings will die eventually. They eat food to survive and so on. Okay, so that's all for today's lecture.